Good morning. Welcome back. Glad are you guys ready for another day?
Yes. Yeah.
Got some breakfast in you. Welcome for those that are joining us online. I hope that you had some great breakfast, some green eggs, and actually they weren't green today. I was pretty impressed. So that's exciting. So we're continuing. It's personal. So we figured have some healthy competition. So we want to know. Things are going to get personal here because we're going to find out, which group is the groupiest, okay? The bestest of the bestest, okay? So we're going to play a game called the groupiest. So you can see on screen, we got a fancy slide name that's going up behind me. Wait for it. There we go. Okay, so we're going to play the groupiest. All right, so how to do this? You need to get in your group. You will see there's 3 buzzers around the room. So hopefully you didn't move it as you sat down and you kept it on the chair that it was sitting on. And he's not paying attention either. So Hayden, the blue buzzer needs to go in your chair. You need to get up in your chair. I need you to find your group and line up in front of one of the buzzers. Okay? So in a group, choose a buzzer. I don't care. You just have to choose one that another group doesn't choose. And then you're going to stand up and make a line behind that chair or in front of the chair.
Okay, we're here.
All right, got it?
Here, guys.
So find your group. Put the buzzer back on the chair. The buzzer should be on the chair that Hayden was sitting in. That's where the buzzer was. There we go. All right. So if you're online watching, you can play by yourself or grab someone, grab mom or dad, and say you're playing this with me, and just do it individually. Okay. And so here we go. These are interesting lines. I need more defined lines, like straight lines.
Oh, okay.
One person stands in front of the chair. The other person stands behind them. Single file lines. Okay. I don't know what other kind of line there is if it's not single file. Okay. So that's not a line. A diagonal on the bias, that would be a line.
It's a zigzag.
Zigzag, is that really a line?
I mean, technically.
It's
more of like a shape, maybe? I don't know. Okay, so straight line. It's not a straight line anyway. So single file line. There we go. Now I want you to all face me. Beautiful. Okay, here's how the game's going to work. You're going to, when I give you the category, you're going to find out who's the est of that category in your group. And that person needs to go hit that buzzer. First person to be the buzzer, then you're going to give an answer of whatever the answer is, okay? Give you an example. This is the sample one. This does not count. Maybe a little more bass out of my voice. The player who has traveled the furthest to get here. Go. Talk amongst yourselves. Find out who it is. Hit the buzzer. Okay. How far away?
2 hours. 2 hours.
2 hours away. All right. So they were the first ones to hit the buzzer, so they get the answer. First answer, 2 hours. Now you may have had a further distance, but you weren't faster. So point for this team over here. All right, got it?
Okay, so like we shift like a line like how we just did.
No, you can stay in the same order. It's just that if Abby has the answer, if she's the est of that group, then she has to run and hit the buzzer. Okay? The person.
I'm not hit the table. All right.
Got it? Okay, face me again. All right. The player with the most pets.
I only have one. Go.
It was pretty close. So we're gonna go. So what we're gonna go with is who has more. So how many pets? 3 pets. Okay, I believe Caitlin, this team takes I'm not a math whiz because I think the numbers in college, but I'm pretty sure 23 is so. All right,
Yeah,
first one.
okay.
The player with the most unique pet.
I got a dog.
I have a bird.
Go, 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 go.
I think over here, Hayden, a what?
It's a big lizard.
You say a tiger?
Taku.
A big lizard.
Yeah, it's a big.
Okay, big lizard.
I want a lizard.
What do we got over
I
here?
had a bird.
A bird,
That's not.
Yes, it is.
a chicken. All right. So I think, well, they hit first hit the button, so it doesn't really matter how creative, unique your pets were. Not that it doesn't matter. It's pretty amazing. But okay, the guys get a point. All right. So it's tied up at 1. Here we go. We got a couple more. The player who knows how to play the most instruments.
I play the piano. I play the
You guys are
guitar.
you're not even talking to each other. You talk to your Okay. Wyatt was the first one. He just assumed that he was the most musical guy in the group, which probably is correct. So Wyatt, how many instruments?
I don't know. I play guitar, piano, drums, everything.
You know how like turned I am right now. That you, hey, I'm being relevant here. Relevant? I'm being hip and
Yeah.
off the chain. Okay, so
Oh, you crazy.
I found out this weekend that Wyatt plays guitar, and we're like, scrambling for a guitar player this year, and like, what? So, but we're glad that Benny is here, because otherwise Benny wouldn't be here, so we're glad that Benny's here. Give it up, Benny. All right, so 2 points for the guys. Here we go, next one. The player, and I'm gonna want proof for this, who can jump the highest.
Oh, no. Not me. It's you.
We got it.
Who was over here first?
Yeah. Wait, don't jump. I'm not.
All right,
You got
so,
it.
Let's know the players who
you
missed the
know
button.
what I'm see.
You got
Let me
it.
see you jump.
All right, y'all hype me up though. Y'all hype me up though.
Jump,
Yeah, do it.
jump.
All right. Yeah, a little cheating action going on with the, the next one. They were the first to hit the buzzer, but I do want to see some of the jumps. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. 2-1-1. The player with the most siblings.
Come on, go, go, go.
The guys over there. Guys first.
Whatever,
So how many?
5.
5 siblings, okay. I think that takes it. Anybody have more than 5 siblings?
No.
Good.
Maybe
All
someone I
right.
don't know.
So 2 for the guy. 2 and 1.
Someone I don't know about.
I win. I think that's
All right.
not.
You got select here.
Lizard music.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Three.
All right.
Wow.
2, 3, 1. Okay, so guys taking the lead. Here we go. The shortest player on the team.
Jordan, we got Jordan.
I think the guys hit it again.
No, you can't hear our talking.
No, that was.
No, it was definitely.
Yeah.
It was mine. Yes. I'm not the
All right.
shortest bias
Ladies,
here.
gotta bring it. 2 for 1. Guys taking the lead.
Obviously, Jordan
The
wins.
player
She's shorter than all.
Who can shout the loudest?
No one.
I guess
Every
me.
single lady's over here. Okay,
Yeah.
now, we're gonna get the point here. I want to hear her shout in a second. Well, let's go here. Go ahead and shout.
Oh my god. That's pretty good. Now
One
it's
more
louder.
screen, but we'll get to it. All right, because I don't want to hear it again. So, here's the next thing. If I see you hit the buzzer without discussing it on your team, it doesn't count.
Okay.
What if we just
Yeah,
know
what
like
if
the
we-
shortest person?
You gotta discuss it, because again, you can't just assume you know people. Hang on to that truth. Okay, here we go. Player with the longest hair.
Jordan. Jordan hit it. I hit it.
Oh, good. It's
I
right
hit
there.
it. Someone is against
Come on,
us.
Katie. If there's one.
That was Katie. Katie, that was yours.
That was Jordan. That one was created for you. Okay, come over here for Jordan and her team. Okay, let's score. We got 3,
4,
4,
2.
2. Okay, this one's worth 3 points.
Oh.
All right, here we go. The player
Birds.
Who lives closest to the church building?
Not me. I live in McDonald later. Touch it. Yeah, okay.
It's not.
Compared to everyone else.
Broken.
Wait, I live in Kennesaw. But my home.
Yeah,
But it's working now.
I believe we did it first.
All right.
Yeah, we did it first.
You guys take this one.
I doubt it. No.
All right, now that we are in the fitting worship, grab a chair, make your own roll, make your own roll. So just bring your chair out and make your own rolls. Pull them out, make rows.
Right. We did. We literally won. Do the row thing. I was sick. I don't get my phone. Okay, I'm out of here. Oh, we're see back to not no. Yeah.
You come at the right time when I least expect it. Never behind. So why would I be surprised when you deliver every time? On mountain tops, you stay the same. In valleys low, you never change. And I believe that I will see the goodness of the Lord. I'm confident I see some change. Faithfulness remains. You go before me to prepare a blessing. You make the way. It's more than I could imagine, more than I can fathom or comprehend. It's on a mountain top, you stay the same. In valleys low, you never change. I believe that I will see the goodness of the Lord. I'm confident as seasons change, faithfulness remains. God of my present, God of my future, you write my story, hold it all together. God of my present, God of my future, you write my story, you hold it all together. God of my present, God of my future, you write my story, you hold it all together. God of my present, God of my future, you write my story, you hold it all together. And I believe that I will see the goodness of the Lord. seasons change, faithfulness remains. Good job, everyone. Give yourself a hand. All right, now we're gonna sing the song that we started off with last night called "We Praise You," and I just really like this song because it's just a song that we can just come to God and be like, we have so much to praise you about. Even when things turn out the way that we don't think they should, or a pandemic comes down on all of us and things have just become craziness, we still have so much to praise Him about. So let's sing this together. Let praise be when silence is the end. Let praise be when it conquers all anxiety. Let it rise. We sing your name in the dark and changes everything. We sing with all we are, we claim your victory. Let it rise. Let praise arise. The sea breaks down every wall. The watch the giants fall. Fear cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side. Forever it's Him God. With all creation, Father God, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Let faith be a song that overcomes the rages. Let faith be a song that calms the storm inside. Let it rise. Let faith arise. As we'll see you break down every wall. Watch the giants fall. Fear cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side. Forever lift Him high. With all creation, Father God, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Oh. 'Cause this is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you, we sing it out. This is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you, we praise you. 'Cause this is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you, we praise you. This is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you, we praise. The sea break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. This fear cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side. Forever is Him high. With all creation pride. We're gonna see you break. We'll see you break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. This fear cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side. Forever is Him high. With all creation, Father God, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. God, we praise you with everything in us. We're We're just so thankful for you and thankful for who you are and what that means for us, God. Be with us as we start a new day, God. Give us strength, give us peace, and just allow us to experience the things that you have for us today. Amen.
What is your favorite backstory? Think through all the characters. You know, I love movies. Anybody else love movies? Favorite movie on three. 1, 2, 3.
Batman Dark Knight Rises.
I agree. Okay. Someone say Ninja Turtles? The one that came out in 1990, of course. Yes. Was it 80s? I don't know. Okay. I had Shredder in it. That's all I know. So the thing is with when you're following your favorite character in a movie, especially ones that they come out with multiple movies, or maybe it's these iconic legends. One of my favorite backstories, you know, it's like the origin stories. And maybe it's not even, you know, Wolverine origin, you know, it may not be coined with that term, but when you watch a movie and you learn the backstory about a character, especially if it's a character you thought you knew, and then they come out with a story and like, oh wow, and it's, I enjoy that. My favorite movie, my favorite backstory movie, even though it kind of was a backstory to a character that I had grown up with. One of my favorite characters, it wasn't the Joker, but it was his arch enemy was the Batman. And so I love the Batman, even the hokey ones that came out in the 50s and 60s, whenever they came out. Wasn't okay. Well, my jokes are hokey, so I'm okay with hokey. You know, with Adam West, and so you're gonna know what movie that I really love the backstory of. Getting to know the backstory of Batman was Batman Begins, when we kind of learned how, you know, how he chose to be Batman, and we knew some of his backstory, you know, parents were killed, you know, that kind of thing, but with Ra's al Ghul, and you kind of get into, you know, how he learned to be such a mean fighter. You tracking with me? So I'm curious, who is your favorite character's backstory? Like when you think of characters, shout out a backstory, like you know, like a character.
Darth Vader.
Darth Vader, yes, awesome backstory.
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter,
Oh, yeah,
okay, a lot of backstory there. Actually, that's kind of the front story, right? We start off with Harry and we kind of go through that. So good stuff. Who else? Nobody else? Just Batman, Darth Vader, and Harry.
She had one. PETA from Hunger Games.
Okay.
Yeah.
For
We love
the
that.
longest time, I was like, why are they calling him the loaf of bread? You know, like. What's that? Nemo, you're the backstory Nemo. Okay. Toy Story, like all the characters? Okay. But yeah, you got a lot of different backstories of Woody and Buzz.
I said solely from Montsupi.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
The blue one.
The big blue guy.
Yeah, from the university.
Yeah.
Solely from Monsters Inc. All right, great. And you notice how, you know, we may think we know like a storyline, and then all of a sudden, you know, Hollywood comes out with another movie and gives the backstory, and it just deepens the understanding of the character. And even sometimes, if you go back and watch the original movie that didn't have the backstory, it just kind of adds a depth. Much more so when in life. Because see, here's the reality. We assume we know people. All too often. We assume because we know some things about them, and maybe we've known them for a year or two, and we just kind of assume that we know, right? And we know what's going on. We assume that we know what makes them tick and what they're thinking. But there's a really big difference between knowing about someone and really knowing them. We can know what they choose to let us see, and we can know that part of them. But think about yourself for a moment and the things that you choose not to share. The things that you hold, in a vault somewhere that you're like, no, you don't get to go here. And maybe you do allow some people to go here. Maybe you don't. Maybe you have like a secondary vault that you go, okay, my really close people, you can come into this room. But the back storage shed, nobody even knows that exists, right? And so we kind of know that about ourselves. And so it's likely that if that's true for you, that's true for others. There's parts that we want desperately someone to know and walk away with going, I love you even more. But the fear of opening that up is just too great. You have the audacity to assume that you know everything about someone else. Because again, you're believing that they're not like you, they're not holding something, but the reality is all of us guard things. Or at least all of us have the tendency to guard things. Everyone has a backstory. And you know this because you played this game in your mind. A teacher gives you a hard grade and you're like, if they only knew what I was dealing with at home, that maybe they'd be more compassionate about the fact that I even got something on the page and turned it in on time. And, if your coach doesn't give you as much playing time as you feel that you should. If they only knew how much time I'm putting in practicing and how much better that I was last year, but we have a new coach and has no clue to that, right? And we play that if they only knew blah, blah, blah. We understand that we have a backstory. So it's not rocket science to figure out that if you have one, everyone has a backstory. Where we came from, the things that we've gone through, things that have happened to us, the difficult times, the good times, and so the question then is, how do we see the backstory? How do we learn to see the backstory, even our own backstory? Because some of us, know it's there, but we don't spend much time there because we just wish it wasn't. Backstories aren't always bad, but we choose who we're going to let in. How do we see the backstory? How do we make it personal? Let's go back to Zacchaeus. We meet Zacchaeus because he had heard things about Jesus. Things that, there was a driving force that he wanted to see Jesus. He didn't know Jesus' backstory, but he heard enough that was going on that made him curious, to the point where he would risk humiliation, even more ridicule, that he would climb a tree to get a glimpse of who this Jesus that he had heard so much about was. And so he climbed up. And as he gets up there, we got 911? Yeah. As he gets up there, he's looking and he sees Jesus. But what he doesn't expect is for Jesus to see him. And when Jesus does see him, he calls him by name and says, Zacchaeus, you come down because I'm coming over. I'm coming to your house. Jesus, here's what I want you to understand. Jesus, if there's anyone on the planet that could have assumed he knew Zacchaeus' backstory, it was Jesus, because he did. He did know Zacchaeus personally. Zacchaeus was clueless about that. Maybe he started to open his eyes when he heard his name. Hey, Zacchaeus. Out of hundreds of people that were there, Jesus calls him. Jesus could have assumed anything because he knew it. But watch what Jesus did. Calls him by name. Tells him to come down. And says, Zacchaeus, I'm coming to your house. Jesus chose to spend time with Zacchaeus. Jesus chose to let him in to see Jesus, to see himself. Jesus chose to take time to learn Zacchaeus' story. The one man that could have rightfully assumed to know everything about Zacchaeus because he made Zacchaeus didn't. And yet I do it all the time. I see someone, and we make our own judgments about someone, whether or not they're worth our time to know their story. Oftentimes we look to see, well, what can I get out of this relationship? Do I, how will it affect my street cred, if I'm hanging with this person? Jesus wasn't worried about it. In fact, Jesus was probably quite certain that it would hurt his street cred. Because you see in this story, the onlookers they became haters. And they started grumbling against what Jesus was doing. How dare he spend time? What's he think he's doing hanging out with those types of people? But Jesus took the time. And he calls us to do the same. Two truths in here I want you to miss. He does the same for you. He knows everything about you, and he's not written you off. In fact, the same invitation that he had with Zacchaeus is with you. I must come. You must invite me home. You must have me come in. I've got to go to your house. And we see the life change that happens in Zacchaeus. But this is his backstory. And Jesus wants to he has invited himself. Personal. Recognize that Jesus could have assumed everything about you because he made you and he knows the good, the bad, the ugly. But he still wants that relationship. That's the first truth. And the second truth, that's how we make it personal. The second way is to make it personal is someone else needs us to call them out of the truth. Someone that has been kind of looking and watching and trying to check out this Jesus. And what is this, because there's something that they're looking for. And they may cloak that in the way that they look for things. People look for significance in all kinds of different ways. Lots of unhealthy ways. But someone that's up in the truth. And you're just going to assume that you know them. Oh, that's Zacchaeus. He's a tax collector. He's a loser. And go your own way. Or we wouldn't relate because I hate tax collectors. I can't stand them. Or you're going to go, no, there's a story here. I want to take time to know him. So what do we do? How do we start? How do we start to make it personal? Well, we start with acknowledging the fact that Jesus wants. He wants. Well, acknowledge the fact that Jesus wants to have that type of relationship with us. So for some of you, that may be your first step. Going, okay, I've got to acknowledge this. And maybe some part of that acknowledgement is you assume some things about Jesus that have kept him at arm's length. You assume some things about the life that he calls you to, rather than really investigating that for your own. What is it? Is Jesus really asking you to give up something? Or is he inviting you into something so much bigger than what you think you have to give up? So some of you need to start there. Others, it's let someone else in. Maybe it's time that you let someone else into your story. Choose someone you trust. Choose someone that you believe can help you take your next steps. But you know someone. And right now you're going, yeah, but no. But you've identified someone, probably already, who you could share something. Now your heart's wrestling that because there's risk involved. And then there's letting other people in just generally. Not everybody needs to see what's in that vault. But the more people we allow to see our backstory, they can see Jesus in our story. And that's what people need to see. So acknowledge that Jesus wants that relationship with you. Let someone else in. And then listen to someone else's. And if someone comes to you at any point and starts to share what's going on in their life or what's happening, listen with grace and mercy filled ears. Maybe in that moment, remember your backstory and go, how would I want, how would I want someone to respond, or how has someone responded that has really helped me? And be that for someone. And that's why it's so critical, guys, to be in a small group with leaders that care about you. And I know most of you are in a group, and this year has been a challenge, and there's a lot of hurdles of being able to stay connected. But we don't have to physically be in a place. Now, yes, when we can be physically together, it's a great thing. And the author of Hebrews says, don't give that up. But even in moments where that's nearly impossible, I believe if the writer of Hebrews, was aware of the technology that we have and the availability that we have to connect, he would include that and don't give up meeting together. And to spur each other on. And so look for ways to encourage you to stay connected with your leader. And what you may not know is staying connected to your leader encourages your leader to stay connected with you. And that's just a reality. I see that in my own life. Okay? Because we go, these endless texts and these calls, they do matter. So I'm gonna, I want to continue that. Because sometimes we go, am I just bugging them to death? Are they just like, loser, and so is it a ghosting, or is it you just, forgot that we texted you, that kind of thing, right? And so encourage one another. Look for ways you can encourage each other. But when you listen to someone else's story, someone does share with you. Really listen. Don't be quick to give answers. Ask questions. But really listen. Imagine what the conversation that Jesus would have had with Zacchaeus once they were around the table. Imagine the questions that Jesus probably was asking. Maybe he didn't need to ask them, but he did. Because Zacchaeus, he needed to know how much Jesus wanted to know him. So the people that you go to school with, the people that you game with, the people that you do life with need to know that you care about their story. And Jesus, when he's talking to his disciples, one of the last conversations he had with his disciples, he said, the world will know that you belong to me, that you're my disciple, by the way that you love one another. He was talking about this ragtag group of 11 men. And then ragtag group of about 120 men and women. So they're going to know that you are mine with how you treat one another, how you love one another. And I guess you can pose the question, could you really love someone that you don't? You can choose to love someone, but your love for them grows when you know the real love. So, last night, you received a white stone. So, hopefully you brought that today. And as we worship, I want you to take your stone out and come up and grab a marker. One at a time, socially distanced style. Grab a marker. And I want you to identify some words. I want you to think about your story. And if you were to sum up your story in 3 words, or 1 word, 2 words, 3 words, what would they be? We're going to put some up on the screen. You can go ahead and put them on the screen now. And as we begin to sing, and Kendall's going to lead us in a song that's really kind of a peeling back of all the things in this life that we make things about to what really matters. And so as you think about your story, I want you to identify 3 words. They don't have to be the ones on the screen. We'll put some up there to kind of prime the well, to help you go, okay, now I know kind of a little bit what Tim's talking about. And I want you to choose 1, 2, or 3 of those words to write on there. You may go, if you want to be the most basic, and I'm not calling it, if this is your story, do this. But this is, I say basic because I think all of us can identify with this. Lost, found. Maybe write 2 words that are opposite, that show kind of the journey of where you were and where you are now. Or maybe you write 3 words, where you were, where you are, and where you feel God's leading you to. God's giving you a new name. But what's your story getting to the new name? He has it for you. He's yet to reveal that to you. What's your story? So identify 3, 1, 2, or 3 words that you want to write and identify your story. Because it starts with inviting Jesus into your story before you can really ever invite someone else into Jesus' story, or even into your own. So pull your stone out, grab a marker, take it back to your seat, and when you leave, you just leave the markers on your chair. Pray with me. God, thank you. You are praiseworthy. That you stepped out of your story to come into ours. And I know some of us don't even feel worthy enough like that He is. For Jesus to call us by name, let alone change His schedule to be with us. Take a risk with His reputation to be with us. But that's what you do. That's what Jesus has done for us. God, I pray that you would use that truth to help us let you into our story, continue to surrender to you in our story, and to let other people into our story, to share our story, to listen to their stories. It's in your name we pray.
You guys can come get the Sharpies there right here. I'm caught up in your presence. And I just wanna sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment. I never wanna leave. Oh, I'm not here for blessing. Jesus, you don't owe me anything more than anything that you can do. I just want you. And I'm sorry when I've just gone through the motions. I'm sorry when I just sing another song. Take me back to where we started. I open up my heart to you. And I'm sorry when I come with my agenda. I'm sorry when I forgot that you're enough to take me back to where we started. I open up my heart to you. We sing, I'm caught up in your presence. 'Cause I'm caught up in your presence. And I just wanna sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment. I never wanna leave. And I'm not here for blessing. Jesus, you don't owe me anything more than anything that you can do. I just want you. Nothing else, nothing else, nothing else will do. I just want you. Nothing else, nothing else, nothing else will do. And I just want you. Nothing else, nothing else, Jesus, nothing else will do. And I just want you. Nothing else, nothing else, nothing else will do. 'Cause I'm caught up in your presence. Sing it out. And I just want to sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment. I never want to leave. 'Cause I'm not here for blessing. Jesus, you don't owe me anything more than anything that you can do. I just want you. You guys can stand up. We're going to finish with one last song. The weapon may be formed, but it won't prosper. When the darkness falls, it won't prevail. 'Cause the disaster knows only how to triumph. My God will never fail. No, my God will never fail. I'm gonna sing a victory. I'm gonna sing a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna sing a victory. I'm gonna sing a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. There's power in the mighty name of Jesus. Every war he wages, he will win. I'm not backing down from any giant. 'Cause I know how this story ends. 'Cause I know how this story ends. I'm gonna sing a victory. I'm gonna sing a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna sing a victory. I'm gonna sing a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna sing a victory. I'm gonna sing a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna sing a victory. I'm gonna sing a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. 'Cause I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord.
It's personal. Whether we make it personal or not, it's personal. challenge sometimes is allowing it, acknowledging it that it is personal. So as we go throughout the day, let's be intent on making it personal. What step that is for you, I don't know. Maybe you don't know. That's okay. That's the first step. Figuring out that first step. And going to him and asking him, what's it look like? So we're going to go into our encounter time this morning. Oh no, before we do that. So we're going to have pictures. But I want to tell you a few things before we go into that. So after picture time, we'll go right into our group, go to your group location and do your encounter time. You will need your journal, so use your journal. And